So there's a new article out in Politico from a former Clinton staffer named Jesse Ferguson. Now, Ferguson argues that instead of looking to the left, which doesn't seem to even be a thought for him, a consideration, looking for the left and progressives of voters, we should instead go after Mitt Romney voters. Now, ironically, he starts out this article by saying that the Beltway has a fetish. Yes, they do. You don't say. But you know what that fetish actually is? It's actually power, money, and celebrity. And the horse race. They love the horse race in the Beltway. And they love people who are centrist and who are the establishment. Now, Ferguson says on this fetish mentality, he believes that it's different, that we've been focusing too much on working class voters. Quote, open almost any major newspaper in almost any week, and you'll find a story set in a working class community, opening with a vignette from a local diner or family factory. These stories wax nostalgic about Obama-Trump voters, those Americans who backed President Obama in 2012 but supported Donald Trump in 2016. In the analysis, they are almost invariably oversimplified as white working class and lacking a college education. And the same conversation also dominates discussion among top Democratic Party operatives, pollsters, and some elected officials. Now, he says on that the focus isn't exactly wrong. Yes, Democrats lost those voters in 2016. Bigly. It's one of the many reasons Hillary Clinton lost the White House. Disclosure, I worked on her campaign. So again, he was a campaign strategist for the Clinton campaign. So, and yes, the future of the Democratic Party does depend, at least in part, in figuring out how to win some of those people back. So, okay, look, so far he's acknowledging the need to reach out to regular working people and acknowledging the fact that when people talk about the working class in the context of economic policy, they tend to classify them all as white, uneducated people. That's actually not entirely true. In exit polls from 23 states from the primaries, they all showed a higher median income for Trump supporters than the national average, usually around $70,000. While people in the Rust Belt did vote for Donald Trump, which got him his electoral college win, it wasn't exactly the white working class around the country that got him his win. It was actually affluent people around the country, and really the white working class who voted for Donald Trump was more in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, places where Hillary Clinton did not campaign. So, now, interestingly enough, these affluent people living in the suburbs almost always vote Republican anyway. So, of course, they were going to vote for Donald Trump. Now, this is where Ferguson makes his mistake. His plan, instead of to reach out to the working class voters or progressives, he actually wants to double down on courting these people, these Republicans. But they're the moderate Republicans, he says. Now, quote, the tunnel vision focus on these Obama-Trump voters as the only path forward for the Democratic Party ignores a major opportunity. In the 6 months since election, we've obsessed about Obama-Trump voters, but completely ignored their inverse, the Romney-Clinton voters. Who are they? Romney-Clinton voters are, generally speaking, college-educated suburban professionals, lawyers, doctors, and business people. They voted for Mitt Romney in 2012, but switched to Hillary Clinton in 2016. Now, as I just pointed out, thanks to exit polling data, that's partially incorrect. Now, let me go to some of the polling data here. Now, white men actually went 63% for Trump versus 31% for Clinton, and white women went 53 to 43%. Among college-educated whites, these are those Romney-Clinton voters, right, that are very educated, 39% of men and 51% of women voted for Clinton. So again, that is your Romney-Clinton voters. They lean Republican, and guess what? Most of them voted for Republicans. They voted for Trump. Why? Because, well, they're not going to vote for a Democrat. They're not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was Republican light. Why vote Republican light when you're going to vote for a Republican? A Gallup study in August revealed that the typical Trump supporter also had not been disproportionately affected by foreign trade or immigration. The results of this survey suggest that his supporters, on average, do not have lower incomes than other Americans, nor are they more likely to be unemployed. So it is not the white working class. It is these voters. The voters that this guy says, we can court these guys, they were the ones who voted for Trump. But Ferguson will continue this narrative. He says the Romney-Clinton voters abhor xenophobia, the alt-right, and racists. But they mostly also socialize within their own race, and they're mostly white. They're socially liberal, but not obsessed with a political agenda. They value fiscal responsibility, but also believe investing in the future, especially education. They remain deeply worried about Trump's qualifications, scared about his temperament, and alienated by his misogyny and ties to extremists. For the first time in a long time, they're willing to hear about and vote for Democrats. Except when they had a chance to vote for a Democrat, the establishment, and they didn't. At least not in incredibly large numbers. Because look, even with all the faults that they saw in Trump, they saw one thing. Well, this guy's a Republican. He's going to lower taxes. He's going to get less regulation. He's going to shrink government. And furthermore, he's not Hillary Clinton. This guy thinks that these people are the future of the Democratic Party. If you want to understand how Democrats can win back a congressional majority, then it's important that you pay attention to a group of voters who might cut a less evocative image than their Obama-Trump counterparts, but those who support of Democrats who could cause the GOP to collapse. But the problem is that you're basing this on a flawed assumption, that these people are going to switch parties, and then because they're going to be so disgusted with Trump, even though they're getting some of the things that they want out of Trump, out of a Trump administration, they're not going to vote for the Democrats. This is doubling down in the same failed Hillary Clinton strategy that she already used in the election. In fact, Ferguson acknowledges that in his own article. You may be asking, why should we focus on Romney Clinton voters, since their support ultimately did not win Hillary Clinton the White House? It is a fair question. And you know what the answer is? You don't. Now, I have a solution to this, but first let's listen to his answer. He said 3 million more Americans voted for Clinton. She earned more votes than any presidential candidate in history, except Obama. Except that doesn't mean a whole lot in our current system. Now, it certainly means Trump can't claim a mandate if that's such a thing is important to you, but that doesn't stop the GOP from trying to do whatever the fuck they want anyway. Has it? Oh, no. So we didn't actually win the popular vote, so that means that we can't just ram everything through. Are you kidding me? No, they're over there going, push harder, motherfucker, push harder. We're going to get that. We're going to get Trump care through. Keep pushing. They don't care about whether or not they won or they lost the popular vote. They're still going to claim, we're in charge now, bitches. We got the world by the balls. Hold on. It's our oyster now. So why does that matter at this point? The Electoral College, by the way, the system that we have now that allowed Donald Trump to win, has stolen 3 different elections from the Democrats. So why isn't Ferguson's solution to change that system and abolish the Electoral College? Well, now that would be smart. That would ensure that if you win the popular vote, you win the election. Now, whether that works against you or works for you, well, maybe that would depend on how well you campaign all across the country. Amazing, right? But of course, he doesn't talk about this because that's too much change. That's too radical change. Now, remember, we're dealing with somebody who's part of the establishment. So when it comes to radical ideas, obviously he's not going to be in favor of that. Now, Ferguson goes on to cite his own exit polls, which are about the same ones that I read. But he did some comparisons between how many votes that Romney got compared to how many votes that Trump got from the same demographics. And while he comes up with, hey, people who voted for Romney didn't vote as much for Trump, so let's go court these guys instead. Well, that's the conclusion. Now, he said that prior to the closing month of the campaign, which was dominated by the slow-rolling release of the exploits of the Russia hacking, which we don't have any proof of, and culminated with the FBI Director James Comey's now infamous letter to Congress about the discovery of new emails in the Clinton case, which was bullshit as well, both internal and public polling showed an even greater crossover vote of these voters, suggesting that these voters are even more open to Democrats than we saw on Election Day. But again, we didn't see that happen. We didn't see these Romney voters turn out for Hillary Clinton. And they're blaming, of course, well, it's not because they didn't like Hillary Clinton. It's James Comey and the Russia thing. That's why they didn't go for Hillary Clinton. That's why they went for Trump. No, they went for Trump because they're Republicans. Even with all the negatives, he was still running as a Republican, and most of them, unfortunately, will continue to vote for Republicans. Now, Ferguson says, no, that's not the truth. They will vote for Democrats if only you were to reach out more to them. In fact, he goes into that by referencing Clinton's TV ads. Internal testing showed that these spots, the ads that they showed of people basically reacting to Donald Trump saying ridiculous things, were particularly effective among Romney voters who were leaning to Clinton. Well, those people were already leaning to Clinton anyway. There was a deliberate strategy between the show don't tell approach of letting Donald Trump speak for himself. Let Trump be Trump. Well, that didn't turn out very well, did it? Nope. Highly educated Americans were often skeptical of advertising with overstated or undocumented claims, but were very open to evaluating Trump with his own words and deeds. Which, look, if you're going to do an attack against Trump, I guess that would work. But also, instead of just doing that, one of the mistakes that Hillary Clinton made is failing to put forward a vision. Most of her ads were negative. She didn't put forward any sort of position. Again, she ran on essentially, Trump is a bad man. I'm not bad like Trump. Vote for me. We found out that that is not a winning strategy. But now he's pointing that, well, man, it worked with the Romney voters, so maybe we should do more of that. Come on, man. For Christ's sakes. Now, he continues. They didn't like what they saw from Trump the candidate, and most likely do not like what they see from Trump the president. Well, ain't nobody. Really, a lot of people don't. As a thought experiment, can you think of a single thing that Trump's Republicans have done that appeals to Romney Clinton voters? I can't think of anything that appeals to anybody, but again, I'm not in the mind of a Trump supporter. And look, to be honest, they don't really have anything to appeal to anybody but the wealthiest Americans. That's why they have to lie constantly to you. And that's why they have to do messaging. And I think this guy underestimates both party loyalty and the power of propaganda. Republican messaging happens to be incredibly effective because they've gotten so good at lying because they don't actually have to come up with policies. They've gotten so good at lying because they've had so much practice of lying to people over the decades. They don't have any new policies. They're not thinking up brand new things or ways to change the system. The whole point of being a conservative is to conserve the status quo and to roll back any sort of progress. So when you want to do that, you're not going to be thinking up new stuff. You're going to be thinking about ways to lie to the American people who actually are more fundamentally progressive than the rest of the country. Now, Clinton, interestingly enough, Clinton is incredibly unpopular. Along with Donald Trump, by the way. Donald Trump is the most unpopular president that we've had in modern times. Somehow Hillary Clinton's less popular. Somehow the Democratic Party is even less popular than that. They're less popular than the Republican Party, according to polls. And do you know what some of these people in these surveys have said about the Democratic Party? They're out of touch. They're for the rich. They're only about putting party over country. And yet Ferguson claims that Republican politicians are the most at risk. They risk permanently turning off this major segment of the electorate that has voted Republican in the past but cannot stomach Trump and those who enable him. Basically saying, look, they're going to have to turn to us. They're tired of Trump. Or they're either going to vote Republican again or sit home. Just because they're not voting for Trump doesn't mean they're going to come over to your side. So what does he suggest doing about this? He's got this whole plan of trying to reach out to these Romney voters, to these Republicans. Quote, winning these voters doesn't mean that we have to change our agenda. Oh, good. Oh, ooh, good to see that. Can't change that agenda. Rather, we have to talk about the type of quality of life issues that matter to these suburban voters, which means advocating our same policy priorities in tailored ways. Oh, so we just have to message neoliberalism and package it up a little bit better. But why go with neoliberalism when you could just have a full right wing, which is full on corporatist? The idea makes sense to them because the policies that the Democratic Party holds right now are that of corporations. Now, look, they've bought into, as a party, the tax cuts and the deregulation, and they use Republican talking points. Now, they bought into corporate welfare and school choice. Their platform says something completely different, but their voting positions say another. This whole plan is against going populist. Instead of going populist, they're going to go a little bit further to the right and retool their messaging to try to appeal to Mitt Romney or Jeb Bush voters, which is, again, exactly what Hillary Clinton tried to do. And it just wasn't enough for a win because, again, more of these people ended up going Republican. Now, he says talking about the working class shouldn't, quote, drown out our ability to make the case to other voters at the same time. But he misses the point on how to do that by going economic populist, by talking about economic issues that affect the middle class as well as people who are in the working class. So look, this is a failed strategy for obvious reasons. Now, luckily, I have a solution. How about the Democrats? See, the Democrats have on their side the most popular politician in the country. Not just among Democrats, but among the entire country. Now, this person happened to have ran to the left of Hillary Clinton, and he talked about popular policy positions like universal health care, which has an over 60% approval rating. The whole idea of a government-driven, single-payer health care plan called Medicare for All is overwhelmingly popular with the American people. He talked about that. He also talked about tuition-free education. He also talked about breaking up the banks and raising the minimum wage. Those are popular positions all across the country. That appeals to both Democrats and Republicans, and of course, independents as well. Now, if you were to take those policy positions and actually fight for them and make them yours, well, those positions would come with an army of young people, young progressives, as well as independents and some Republicans who actually do believe in good policy over the political party. If you were to go in that direction, and if you were to follow Bernie Sanders, if the Democrats want support, they only need to look leftward instead of going further to the right and trying to win over and sway the moderate Republicans. Just adopt these policy positions and fight for them. Go left, go progressive populist, and I can guarantee you can pick up far more people. The people on the left, which far outnumber the people, this Romney-Clinton group that you're trying to court. The old strategy of pushing to the right to try to win over someone else's voters doesn't work anymore. And unfortunately, they're stuck in that mode. And for some reason, I can't entirely blame them for it. Because Washington is full of the same people who think the same way. Oh, we lost the election. It looks like we weren't conservative enough. America is super conservative, and we have to go even further to the right. That means more tax cuts, more deregulation. But that's not the truth. America is not conservative. America on policy issues is progressive. They don't call themselves Democrats because even if you hold progressive positions and democratic positions, that doesn't mean that you identify with the party. Right now, the party is so incredibly unpopular. More of the, over 43% of the people in America are independents. They are not part of these political parties now. And look, when it comes to upcoming generations, the generations that you can reach out to get these votes, go to young people. Especially now, since Frank Luntz had called them terrifyingly liberal. That should show you that the answer is not to go right. It is to go to the left. Let me give you a good example. You had just had Christine Pellegrino win in a district that voted overwhelmingly for Trump, over 20 points. Now, Christine Pellegrino is not a milquetoast centrist Democrat. She was a former Bernie Sanders delegate who ran on progressive positions like Medicare for all, winning in a Trump district, a staunchly Republican district. She was not the centrist. She did not use this policy. She didn't reach out to Clinton-Romney voters or Romney-Clinton voters. No, she reached out to human beings, to people who are in the working class, to people who believe in progressive positions and progressive policy. That's how you win. You've got Democrats who can win in deep red districts. Now, you don't win by starting centrist and going further to the right, as this guy unfortunately wants us to do. You can actually win by going to the left and following the most popular politician in America. Follow what he does. And of course, that politician is Bernie Sanders. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.